It's now time for the Google News Lab, which I've seen before. I don't know if you gentlemen have. It is extremely valuable for all journalists, I think, but especially those who are young and hoping to make a career. And Richard Bourne, our chair, will be chairing this session. Over to you, Richard.
It's a great pleasure to welcome Caroline, who has done a lot of talks, and particularly to your age group, about the various tools that Google has made available. We've had a lot of discussion this morning about how the whole media world is changing in the digital age. It's requiring great skill to work with the materials, the very large quantities of information you need to deal with, much of it in digital form, and to manage this, to do well in this, as young journalists, you need to know how to use the Google tools. And we're very grateful to Google, which is a major sponsor for this conference. And it is a great pleasure to invite Caroline to speak to us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all very much for coming along today. It's wonderful to be invited. So my name is Caroline Scott. I'm from Google News Lab. If you haven't heard of us before, we are a small team of journalists. We're spread out across the world. And our fundamental purpose at Google News Lab is to train reporters, professional reporters and student reporters in a range of different tools that you can use within your storytelling. So to really mix technology with storytelling to enable you to reach more audiences. So essentially there is a huge amount of news professionals that work at Google News Initiative. We work with reporters side by side to help them with their business models, to fund events like this that are helping the industry. But as I said, our role there is to advance the practice of quality journalism, okay? So at News Lab, we're there to help you. This is a free resource that any of you guys can use. We do training in a variety of research tools, data visualization, verification tools, geo-mapping and all sorts, okay? So whether you are looking to go into sports reporting, investigative reporting, breaking news, long-form features, broadcasting, online radio, whatever it is, there's tools available for you online, not just necessarily from Google, but obviously I'm going to show you a range today that will help you progress in your careers. And as I say, the tools that we're going to show you through today, buckle in because there's a lot of them, so you'll have to just make some notes, but I will send you some PDFs after the event so you can go to all of these URLs. But all of these tools we teach to, reporters that have been in the industry for 20, 30, 40 years, okay? So if you guys can get to grips with them now, you're going to put yourself in a really, really good position. I joined Google in 2021, in the January of 2021, and it's just blown my mind the past 2 years what you can actually do. Technology's changing so much, the industry's, we have to constantly keep up with that. So the tools I'm going to be running through with you today are going to be on a variety of different topics. This is our main website. If there's any URL you take down from today, this is it, g.co/news training. This is our main website where we have lots of on-demand training courses, okay? So any of the tools I speak about, whether that's Google Maps, Google Earth or Flourish, if you want to go and have a look at those yourself in your own time, which I highly suggest you do, there are PDF versions in multiple languages you can go onto our website to check out. Okay, so these are the topics I'm going to be speaking about over the next 40 minutes. We're going to kick off with research tools, obviously something that we're all using every day. Then we're going to move on to data visualization. Some people can see this as a kind of a scary, daunting topic. A lot of people, if you've not worked with data before, it can seem really overwhelming. We're talking about how we can make this a bit easier for you guys. And then we're going to move on to Geo Tools, Google Maps, Google Earth Studio, how we can use satellite imagery to advance your storytelling. And then last but not least, of course, verification, something that all of us have to do as reporters nowadays. So I'm going to keep checking the time because I know that we're going to be whizzing through these. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to shout out at me. But I will be available afterwards so you can come and grab me as well. So let's start off with research tools. Of course, we all use Google every day, whether that's for your personal or your professional use. So how do we find the information we want quicker on Google? Because, we've all been there, we're searching for a question, or we put, some kind of phrase into Google, and we get pages and pages and pages of results, right? Well, as reporters, we don't want that. We want to find the information as fast and effectively as possible. So what I just wanted to kick off with is some advanced search refinements that you guys can use in your everyday use of Google. Now, a search refinement is a small phrase or a word that you can put before your search term to essentially niche your search in Google down even further. So if you're looking for a particular phrase, file type, it could be in a particular language, whether it's from a particular website, you can use these search refinements, also known as search operators, in your everyday use to kind of get the information you need faster. So I've put a few of them on the board here. These are the ones that we recommend that you kind of kick off with. Now, there are hundreds of different search refinements that you can use, but these are ones that you can get started with. So the first one at the top, we've got that little minus sign, the dash on your keyboard. That's to remove any words that you don't want from your search. So I've put here Jaguar speed. Of course, Jaguar can be a cat or it can be a vehicle, right? So, you can try this tonight when you're making dinner, I don't know, salsa recipe minus tomatoes, whatever it might be. The word tomatoes won't be in your search. In 5 years' time, you guys are doing a report on vaccination uptake here in the UK, and you don't want any information about COVID-19, minus COVID-19, minus coronavirus, and so on. The next one is site. If you're trying to find out information from a particular keyword from a website, so I've put here Boris site /bbc.co.uk, I will find my results come up about Boris Johnson, obviously, from bbc.co.uk. The next one there, I've obviously put the government websites. This works on educational government sites as well. Related is a really, really popular search refinement. If you have a particular website that you are finding lots of information from, maybe it's a very niche subject, country music in Birmingham, for example, very, very niche down. If you find a particular website that you want to find a related site to that, related : and then the name of the website. I've put in here gettyimages.com, because if you're looking for other royalty-free sites, for example, you might use that. The next one is cache. Essentially, Google will save screenshots. It will trawl through your sites to save the latest versions of sites. So let's say if you're looking for the latest information from a government website and the website's gone down, you can put in cache and then the name of that site to see the latest saved version from Google. I put internetarchive.org on there because it has a really great feature on that website called the Wayback Machine, and you can go back in time on websites to see what they looked like previously. And then the one at the bottom there, file type. So for example, here I put expenses, file type XLS. If I'm looking for a file of a particular file type, I can use that search refinement. Now, of course, you don't need to remember all of these off by heart, but it does help. So if you can get into the practice of just putting these into the search bar when you are searching through. If you don't remember them, you're at your computer this afternoon, you think, what did Caroline say? I can't remember. Go down to the bottom, go to the settings cog on google.com, and you will find a search form that's called advanced search. And it's basically a cheat sheet, right? So you can fill in these options. But don't rely on this, because in the future, if you're working on breaking news or you need to find information fast, then of course you don't want to be going through this every time, but it is there for you. Now, search refinements are great if you combine them together, because this will enable you to get a really, really niche search for whatever you're using, okay? So rather than just using file type, certain file type, within the title, certain word, you can put all of these together to really, really kind of whittle your pages down. Now, that's also really useful to use if you're going to set up a Google search alert. If you haven't used a Google search alert before, this is essentially telling Google to do some of the hard work for you. I'd recommend every single news organisation in the UK and abroad has these, because essentially you can ask Google to do a search for you every day, every week, every month, and send you the results direct to your inbox, okay? So if you're finding yourself every day searching on the same thing, well, you can make sure that Google does this for you with a search alert. The next search tool that we have here at Google is the dataset search. Of course, in the past, there were specific data journalists, and there still are in some organisations. But now more and more, we find journalists are integrating data journalism into their everyday work, trying to find stories with data or trying to add context to their work with data. Now, the dataset search was originally developed just for scientists or for data journalists, but now it's been open to everyone, and we recommend that all journalists use it if you're looking for a particular data set, okay? So this is what it will look like when you go inside. You're going to search for your keyword at the top, and then you can see all the data sets that appear that are publicly available to you. You can tap on and you can go to those websites and you can filter through those as well. Our next search tool, Google Scholar. Usually when we go into universities, when we talk about Google Scholar, most journalists are like, I'm never going to look at that after I finish my dissertation. But we really recommend it as a great place to go and find either academic sources, people to interview, you can search for court papers and so on. You can also set up a Google search alert linked to Google Scholar. So if you want to track a particular academic, particular information about a particular, somebody in the news or somebody that's been written about a lot in historical papers, you can use Google search alerts with Google Scholar as well. So don't disregard it after you guys graduate, because it is a great source. I know a lot of us use social media, but this is the world's largest internet database. Okay, so make the most of the information you have on there. The next tool, and I did warn you this is going to be a whistle-stop tool, guys, so make sure you're taking notes, is Google Trends. Google Trends is a free tool where you can see what people are searching for online, okay? So it doesn't matter what country you are in the world. If you go to trends.google.com, essentially you can see all the trending topics. So you can see what has been most searched for in the past 24 hours. So obviously this will depend on where you are in the world. You can see how many searches have been made in terms of jumps since the previous day, the day before. But what's really nice is that you can actually search for terms or topics of stories that you're writing about, right? So that search bar at the top, if there's a particular subject that you're interested in, you can search for that and see the search interest rise and fall within the particular region you're in. And you can also compare people, compare search terms and topics against each other as well. So let's say you're watching a televised debate in the lead up to an election, and you wanted to compare search interest with different political candidates over the past hour. You can see how the search interest has risen and fallen. So this is a great place to find information to add context, which you can download, by the way, and visualize if you're into data visualization, or you can just use it for story inspiration as well. So a lot of the news organizations that we go into will send out the top trending topics of the day to their journalists as just a quick 5-minute thing in the morning. Okay, so great for you guys to get into the habit of that. Now, our last research tool is called Pinpoint, the most amazing tool. It's one of our latest tools, again, completely free to you. I'd recommend all of you guys at university start working with this now. Essentially, it is a research tool that enables you to analyze huge collections of documents. Okay, so if you've done a Freedom of Information request and hopefully you've received hundreds, if not thousands of documents, or if you're working with emails, handwritten notes, audio files, PDFs, whatever it might be, rather than you staying awake in the library every single day trying to find some links between them, trying to find key names and stuff, essentially it will do the hard work for you to kind of pick out names, locations and companies that are common between all of these documents. Now you get to Pinpoint through the Google Journalist Studio. The Google Journalist Studio is a collection of tools that we feel will be useful to you guys. So not like our first URL I gave you today, which is a training website where you're going to go and learn. This is a great website to bookmark where you can link to all of our other tools as well. Okay, so our next section is all on data visualization. Data visualization, as I said before, it's kind of a scary one. A lot of people think, oh, I don't want to work with data, spreadsheets, numbers. Like, it does seem, is that something that you guys are interested in at uni? Maybe not. However, data visualization is something that all of us have to try to incorporate into our work, okay? So some journalists have said to us, okay, we feel a bit nervous in terms of how do we visualize data, okay? I'm working with this data set, or, I've gone to a football match, or I've gone to a swimming race, or I've got the numbers from the latest police reports, whatever it might be, but I don't know how to visualize that to our audiences. Well, oh, it's not showing my slides. But essentially, Flourish is a tool where it has a range of different templates, okay? So templates like bar charts, pie charts, projection maps. It could be swimming races, running races, countdowns, Olympic timers, all sorts, where you essentially go down in Flourish and you pick the tool that's going to be most, the visualization that's going to be most useful to you, and you can import your data into the tool and essentially just get an embed code and put it on the back end of your website. So you can't export videos from this, but you could if you wanted to do a screen record, and they create interactive graphics without any previous knowledge of coding. Okay, so if you are here today thinking, okay, data is scary to me, go and check out this tool called Flourish. There's a whole how to use this on our website. And yeah, I mean, for maps, interactive stories, graphics, it can be really good at essentially grabbing your audience's attention. Sorry, I can't play the video here, but we will move on. So Geo Tools, who here uses Google Maps? Or has Google Maps? Yeah, most of you. Okay, great. So Google essentially has a range of different geo tools that can help you to visualize stories or to verify information that you're going to find online, of course. So I'm going to run through some of the geo tools that we have and how they might be useful to you. The first one is, of course, Google Maps. Everyone knows Google Maps. Atlas of the world. You can use it to plot certain points, find directions, find the distances between buildings, and so on. Now, within Google Maps, we have what's called Google Street View. Everybody knows Google Street View because you think of that little yellow man. Do you remember this? And you used to drag it, and you could go anywhere in the world. You drag it to your house or your front door, you know. But Google Street View is content that's collected not just by members of the public, but also there's a team at Google that go around on snowmobiles, in cars, and planes, and they basically capture all of this content that you can use. Now, we see a lot of reporters using Google Street View essentially to verify content. So if you're in a newsroom and you get sent in some information, let's say you get sent in a picture which claims to be in a certain location, going into Google Street View via some of our geo tools, you will be able to see, okay, well, actually that building's in the wrong place, or X, Y, and Z. Is this really the case, or is that what that looks like at this time of year? Now, there's Google Maps, and Google Street View is within that. But there's also something called Google My Maps, okay? So Google Maps is maps defined by Google. Google My Maps are maps defined by you, okay? So if you're telling a story where you want to use a map or a visualization, like a 2D visualization within your website, or you just want to take a screen grab or whatever it might be to use within your storytelling, My Maps enables you to do this by plotting areas on maps. So you can see this one. This is by Friends of the Earth. They plotted pollution, nitrogen dioxide hotspots around the UK, and they use some of these like pinpoints on top, just a color code, just to make it easier for audiences to see. Likewise, this is another My Map. This was done by the Irish Times, and it showed there was a murder of a 14-year-old girl, and they showed basically where her body was found, where she was before she was killed, and so on. So something like this is very, very basic and easy to do, and something that's accessible to you guys if you just want to visualize something much quicker. So this is 2D, as you can see. This is like bird's eye view kind of stuff. When you're getting into 3D imagery, you want to start looking at Google Earth, okay? So Google Earth has obviously a huge range of satellite imagery within it. It has 3D content from major cities around the world. This is going to be added to all the time. What's really great about Google Earth is now the ability to create interactive projects. This is a fairly new update to Google Earth. An interactive project is where you can take your audiences on a journey. Now, this is not just for travel journalism, for example. You could be showing audiences the 5 best places to XYZ, showing people where somebody was murdered, take them down a particular street, show people, let's say, the route of a marathon, for example. An interactive project is essentially where you guys, as the reporter, is going to go into Google Earth, and essentially you can plot different places on the globe and take audiences on a journey. So this one is called Finding Home. This was done by Time back in 2016, before the integration of these interactive tools. And it was during the refugee crisis, as we saw, you know, families traveling through Europe. Okay, the video's not playing, but essentially, imagine this video playing. We're taking you from point A to point B to point C, and you guys as reporters, you can change the text, you can change You can change the text or any of the pictures above to essentially put your own spin on the story. So something like this is an interactive way to get audiences to do something as they're being taken around. And all of the imagery is obviously provided by Google. So all you guys are having to do is plot the points on the map, add some text, add some imagery that you feel is going to be useful. We've just had a massive update to Google Earth as well. Now this is stunning, guys. This is the biggest update to Google Earth since 2017. There's been 20 million satellite images that have been put into Google Earth, and they are available for all of you to see now from the past 37 years. It's almost like the closest thing we have, to time travel at some point, because, we can jump back and see what areas look like over the past 3-4 decades, okay? Now, at the moment, the updates are, it's on Google Maps, on Staff Maps, we can see particular areas from the past 4 decades. This is not an update that's been made publicly. However, you guys can access all of these amazing time-lapse videos for things like climate change, urbanization, deforestation, and so on. These are ready-to-use time-lapse videos that you can download directly to your computers and use within your own projects, okay? So that's the URL if you want to go to that, g.co/timelapse videos. So the imagery available within Google Earth, of course, for reporting purposes, if you're talking about one of these issues, climate change, urbanization and so on, is going to be useful. But for you guys, for verification processes, going back in time, what was that building there? What did that street look like? And so on and so forth. Our last Geo tool is called Google Earth Studio. Personally, it's my favorite one. I come from a video journalism background. Google Earth Studio is an animation tool that you guys can use to create videos where you're flying over the Earth, you're flying through streets, you're zooming into particular street corners, and you can export that as a video to use within your own storytelling. So it looks a little bit like this. If you've never used video production software like, I don't know, Final Cut, Adobe Premiere Pro, Avid and so on, it can look a little bit daunting when you go in, but there are quick start templates like zoom to, point to point to point, orbiting around locations. So let's say, for example, you had a correspondent at Wembley Arena and they were going to talk about, the latest game that was on. You could orbit around Wembley Arena and then cut to that correspondent. So you could take, a 3-second clip from Google Earth Studio and use it within your news reports. Or like the Washington Post did, they zoomed in from space down to the street corner where George Floyd was killed and then went into an investigation on, the death of George Floyd. So something like this imagery can be used not just for travel journalism. I think a lot of people will think, oh, it's nice, you take audiences on a nice trip of the latest trek around Spain or whatever it might be. But actually you can use this to really give audiences a view of a story that they wouldn't have been able to get without this imagery. What's really nice in this is it's like you're a drone, because it's all taken from helicopter footage. So when you guys go into Google Earth Studio, and you will need to request permission to access it, essentially you can hover around buildings. If you go onto Google Earth or Google Earth Studio, type in Buckingham Palace this afternoon, you can literally see around the grounds of Buckingham Palace, zooming in, zooming out. It's incredible. So definitely urge you guys to check that out. And then our last section for today is, of course, digital verification. I know loads of you guys are interested in looking at verification tools. Now, Google has quite a few verification tools that you guys can just start using right away, with whether that's pictures or videos or even information that you're using. Now, we know it's very, very easy to manipulate images. It's extremely easy to manipulate videos and audio. You don't need to be a master at Photoshop anymore, do you? Do you remember when, where we were all, I guess, starting out, with our journalism degrees, or even like, when we were back, like, let's say 15 years ago, you kind of had to be a master of this desktop computer software. Now, if you go on TikTok for 5 minutes, you get an advert for a face tune or change the color of something. It's just incredible, the technology. Or if you guys have seen the Tom Hanks deepfakes, it's just insane, So as reporters, we need to constantly be on the ball and looking at every single thing, scrutinizing it. Is this true? Has it been manipulated? Now, I've just put 2 examples here. This is the former Austrian Chancellor, Sebastian Kurz. He's just sitting there in a pub. There was a picture behind him of a woman smoking. PR team has changed the picture on the wall. The former leader of Canada's Green Party there, she's drinking out of a disposable cup, and the team have changed it to a reusable, much safer, recyclable cup. Now, something like that is not even harmful, is it? But you can see how people will go out of their way to change, like, even the smallest things that can affect us as reporters to manipulate a scenario. This picture here, now this looks like it could have been photoshopped. Now it was reported, you can see there, LM Entertainment, this protester in Hong Kong returned tear gas with a tennis racket. Okay, so you can see that was posted on June the 13th, 2019. However, it was actually a picture of the year from Reuters, and it was actually from a demonstration that took place in France. Now, if you were just looking at that, especially in the context of a day like today, you might think, oh, maybe the tear gas was photoshopped in, especially the tennis racket. Why would you turn up with a tennis racket? But it was a true picture. So you can see images, not only can they be manipulated, of course, they can also be taken out of context. Okay, and even like the slightest little change can really, be done deliberately in order to kind of fool reporters or to just get their content seen. So we have a few tools. I'm going to tell you about them today. The first one is the Google image reverse search, images.google.com. Now, usually when we use Google, we are searching for something, aren't we? We type in a word and we want pictures of that word, or we want information about that. However, if you have an image, or if you have been on Twitter or something's gone viral and you want to search about that image, you can essentially use that image, whether you upload the URL, whether you upload the photo from your computer, and you do what's called a reverse image search. Okay, so you are searching Google's index of material for that image. So this image here, do we know where it is? Anyone? So, mixture. So this image, I thought it was San Francisco too. If you upload it, it is indeed Lisbon. Someone did say it. So that image there, you could see that and you think, oh, okay, Big Red Bridge, San Francisco. However, if you put it into the Google image reverse search, basically it will search through Google's index of images and say, let's have a look at all the other big red bridges, essentially, right? And it will look at all the other images and it will tell you where that image is taken from. Now this, this example, okay, it's fine, but it's just an idea of how you can easily be manipulated. What if that was war zone footage, taken from, I'm going to show you an example in a second, where there was a video and it looked like it was from a war zone. It could have been taken from any war zone. However, when you put it into a reverse image search, it's actually from a video game, which was very realistic, right? So if you do have videos that you see online or that are sent to you, of course, videos can be manipulated as well. This is not a Google tool, but it's a plugin for your Chrome browser called Invid. Invid is an amazing tool because essentially it will get your video and it will split it into all of the keyframes, basically, all of those snapshots that make up a video, which is basically a video is loads of pictures put together and played back fast, right? So basically it will break your video up into individual frames, and then you can do a Google image reverse search on one of those frames, right? So you can see this video here looks like it could be taken from, the barrel of a weapon, but actually put it into Google, we can see it's actually from a computer game, okay? So again, very, very easy to be manipulated. So making sure that we've downloaded that. The other plugin I would recommend getting is the Revi reverse image search. Revi essentially is a plugin where you can right-click on an image, and rather than just search through Google, you can also search through Bing, Yandex, and Tinai, which are other reverse image searches, okay? So you get a variety in there as well. So for example, if I right-click on an image, it will just take me to all 4 of those different search engines, open up 4 different tabs, and help me search through them, okay? And then our last verification tool is the Fact Check Explorer. The Fact Check Explorer is essentially a search engine where it will tell you what fact checks have already been done. So I think sometimes as reporters, especially when we're getting started out in verification, we think, oh, I'm going to go and have a look at, if this is actually true. Let me go and reverse image search this myself. Let me go and investigate. Let me go and talk to all these people. However, there might have been a reporter out there somewhere around the world that's already done that. Okay, and they've published an article, because there's lots of news organisations now that have teams that fact check information, that publish information for audiences to help them see what has been deliberately spread online, which has been false, so disinformation. So if you go to g.co/fact-check tools, this is a really amazing search bar. You can see what has already been debunked. So let's say Boris Johnson has just done a speech on television. Somebody will be going through and checking the percentages he said or some of the statistics and facts, okay? If there's anything questionable that's been said, somebody might write an article on it. Might do. You know, you might not find everything on here, but it is a good place to start with before you go off down a rabbit hole doing your own investigations, okay? And I would say, you know, if you want to get involved with fact-checking, there's an amazing source, First Draft. If you've not heard of it, head over to First Draft website. Again, this is not Google, but First Draft is its own organisation. They have loads of reference guides on verification, tools, especially debunking information and claims that you see online. Okay, so go and check out this guide by First Draft. It's fantastic. And then finally, this investigation called Anatomy of a Killing. I'm sure those of you at the BBC here will know it. Some of you will probably have seen this. This is back in, I think, 2016 now. The team at BBC Africa, there was a video that went viral. And in the video that went viral, there was women and children that were murdered in broad daylight. And essentially the government in Cameroon said, excuse me, this didn't take place here, happened in Mali. And the team at BBC Africa, it's an amazing video, go and watch it on YouTube. They investigated this video bit by bit, frame by frame. They looked at not only the time of day it took place, but the coordinates on the map using Google Maps. They looked at mountain ridge lines in the background. They looked at the angles of the shadows of the men as they were walking to go and kill these women to see what time it was, what time of year it would have been. They used Google Maps for verification and a lot of other tools like Facebook and other social media sites. So it's a really good video to go and watch. I think it's about 10 minutes, but when you're on it, don't look at anything else, just focus. It's a good example of how you can use verification tools within your own work. So I appreciate there's a lot of different tools there. If there is any that's particularly taking your fancy for a story that you're working on at the moment, or you know this particular area you're interested in, please do take the time to go to this website. And I know when you come to these conferences, you will have notebooks full of stuff, and then it's like, oh, I've got to get on with my jobs or day-to-day lives. But a lot of these are 10-minute bite size, right? So before you do anything tonight, just go and have a look and just pick one or two, because they are really good. And I should say, just before we end, Google News Lab, all of our training is free and available, especially to journalists and students, okay? So if there is a tool that you want more information on from either your newsrooms or at university, we can come in and do workshops just on that tool or on areas. So, you know, you can keep in touch. And I'm the teaching fellow for the UK, so it's just me, I'm sorry. So you have to know my face now. So, but yeah, be in touch with us because we're here to help you guys.
Caroline, thank you very, very much indeed.
You're welcome.
I know you're sticking around during the lunchtime networking session, and thank you for that, because I think individuals will have a lot of questions to ask. But if there's, we have about just under 5 minutes, I think. If there's anybody burning to ask a question at once, let's please take it. I think there's none online, so anybody here? Well, whilst people are thinking, I have a question. Being a complete troglodyte, you constantly see in articles that something or other has gone viral. When I asked one of my grandchildren, who's rather more expert in this than I, he said this could mean anything from 15 to 15 million. What is there any state-of-the-art definition of what going viral actually means in terms of take-up?
As far as I'm aware, there isn't. And I know that's really annoying because, you know, something could go viral in a small community of people as opposed to global viralness, you know. But yeah, no, there's no viral definition for that, I'm afraid, yeah.
So does that mean that actually it's a misleading word to use for a journalist?
I think potentially, obviously you would have to kind of talk much more in context about and give figures. You know, if you're going to say something's gone viral, how has it gone viral, you know, and where has it gone viral with who? Okay, so talk about what community that it's gone viral amongst and on what platform. Of course, it's very different depending on where you're going to be posting it.
Sorry, that was just to allow you to think of one or two questions in the time we have. A very good friend of ours, I should say. This is Keith Stokesmith, who runs the Birmingham Commonwealth Association. Like Google, one of our sponsors today.
Caroline, thank you. Can you hear me? First of all, just to clarify a point, you showed that image of possibly Cameroon. Was it Cameroon, do you know?
Yes, it was. Yes,
It
and it
was.
actually led to the arrest of the men involved.
Great.
So
okay.
yeah, it was a really good example of if you go and watch the video. I know I say keep watching, but I've watched it about 10 times. And every time I watch it, basically they break down all the steps that the reporters took in London and in Africa to basically reach out to people across the web. They used external investigators as well, people on social media, to help them to find the location of this. So they actually talked through how it was done. But yes, it did lead to the arrest of the men. So it's a nice example.
And my other observation, at the very beginning I heard that in journalism it needs to be X, Y, Z, including being balanced. But it's interesting you said somewhere when you were speaking about so you can put whatever spin you want on this, which seemed to me contrary to what journalism is about.
What was the context of me saying that?
Google Earth, I've actually written down your actual words, but you said so you can put your spin on it.
Maybe I meant physically, because you can spin around.
Oh, okay, right. Well,
I mean, as in, like, say if you want to tell a story from a particular viewpoint, I guess, you know, obviously with satellite imagery, it's non-manipulated, the stuff from Google Earth, so you're just showing how the satellite imagery looks. I don't remember what context
right.
I said that in.
I'll let you off that one. Thanks very much.
And I think we have a question here.
Thank you so much for a very, very informative kind of presentation. My question is, are you as a part of Google team looking at Chinese web search engines like Baidu, and are they actually using similar technology? And is there any kind of like, or are they replicating your programs here, or what's going on there?
Well, I don't know what other third-party organisations are doing, no. So all of the tools that we teach at Google are like Google-owned tools. So in terms of like the search engines, for example, like the Fact Check Explorer, journalists can submit their fact checks to be shown within the Fact Check Explorer. So rather than us trawling all over the net, that's submitted to us. So I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive answer on what Baidu and stuff are doing, you know. Sorry, yeah.
And this is the final question here.
Thanks. That's a fantastic toolkit that you've just outlined to us. It's great. I'm just wondering what sort of acknowledgement Google gets out of that. I mean, it just occurred to me as you were, I think it was the Google Earth Studio. I'm in the process of making a little documentary about a slum area in Nairobi, and it occurred to me that would be a good little snapshot to do an aerial shot of where this place is. I mean, is Google embedded in anything
Yes.
that we would use like that?
Yeah, well, the copyright information from the satellite imagery is actually exported with the video that you would make. So you can choose where you want the attribution to lie on the video. You can export it without. However, there's like obviously Google guidelines as to how you need to attribute it if you do that. So I would recommend just exporting it with the copyright information on. It's tiny, it's in the corner. But obviously, like Google gets that satellite imagery from a variety of different sources as well. So you need to, it will export with all of that on it. So just to be safe, it's already embedded in. So.
Well, may I, with that, thank Caroline again most warmly. And it was a fantastic race through the various tools that are available, all of which journalists are going to have to use increasingly. And by starting young, you can do things that I'm afraid for me are quite difficult to learn. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.